kind of as a part 2 to this video, but have you guys noticed that right now the restrictions in deployment generally, especially for SMRT Sunli Bus Park, have been a lot more relaxed as compared to like a few months ago? Okay, so right now, to clarify, for electric buses, the rule used to be that you're not allowed to enter the tunnel. So once I think Go Ahead, they tried to put e-bus on 518, and they were told to just off service the bus before the bus even reached CTE in the first place. No, it wasn't CTE, I'm sorry. I think it's KPE, before KPE. Okay, so the rule used to be that you're not allowed to enter the tunnel at all. But right now, the current rule states that only during revenue service are you not allowed to enter tunnels. So that is why currently, for bus services like 518, they go inside tunnels, and that's why they are not allowed to deploy e-buses. And this goes for like Changi Airport basement as well, if I'm not mistaken. But this is only for revenue service. For non-revenue service, which means like off-service route to and from the depot, so in essence, like this, the rule has changed in order to accommodate to the bus captains, because the bus captains have been complaining about uh, just how do you say it? It's like, okay, let's say, using a case study, 107, the quickest off service route from like Shenton Way, this is not for M but just for 107 in general, the quickest route is actually via MCE, KPE, and then if I'm not mistaken, it's like for Hakang Depot, it's you exit at Tampines Road and then you go down Defu Avenue 1. I don't know if I pronounced that properly. Defu, how do you pronounce it? But yeah. But that's Hougang Depot. I think Sengkang West Depot, it should be, if I'm not mistaken, it's Buangkok East Drive. Buangkok Drive, Sengkang East Road, Sengkang East Avenue. Then onto Sengkang West Bus Depot. I think that's the case. Because previously, even for the off service, you were not able to use KPE because there is a tunnel. And if you were to use CTE, you would have to enter via Bukit Timah Road. So you can imagine it was like Anson Robinson, Collier Key, Fullerton Road, and then Stamford Road, Beach Road. Or you could go like Middle Road, Beach Road, and then Rochor Road, Rochor Canal Road, Bukit Timah Road, CTE. And then from CTE, you could drive all the way to, you can exit at like Jalan Kayu or like Sengkang East Road, and then you can make your way to or even Yio Chu Kang. I think Yio Chu Kang is faster. Yio Chu Kang Road, Sengkang West Road, Sengkang West Avenue, and then Sengkang West Depot. I think that's one way to do it. Or you could just copy 107's revenue service route and then use like Upper Serangoon Viaducts, for example. But that is like really inefficient, and it's like, if you have to like not use the expressway, it's really inefficient, and it's not good for like bus captain welfare as well. So they changed the rule, they relaxed it so that you could go inside the tunnel for non-revenue service, like off service. It's just that like for revenue services, they aren't allowed to cameo on bus services that have tunnel sectors along the route. But yeah, off service route, you can actually use you can actually drive an electric bus into the tunnel for off service if you're not taking like any passengers per se. So yeah, they relaxed it. And this is done because they don't really want any batteries exploding, especially when like the bus is on full load and then the bus has to work really hard to propel it forward. I don't know. I'm not that good at physics, but like if a bus is at full load, more work is needed to be done to propel the bus like forward or even backwards. It's like more work is needed, more energy is needed, and yeah, it might cause strain for both diesel engines and like electric engines. Yeah, electric motors as well. I'm sorry, but yeah, this is like how I would explain it simply. They don't really want the buses going kaboom inside the tunnel, so yeah, before the battery technology matures, they have to like implement this rule, like no choice. This is why you won't really see any electric bendy bus on CDS, because some of the CDS they go via CTE. So yeah, that's one thing, and you definitely wouldn't see them on 661 either, or those CDS that use KPE to the residential estates. So that is one way that the rule has been relaxed. But this is for electric buses. I'm gonna take you back to the very first day when, if I'm not mistaken, there were two cameos. It was the very first day that SMRT, it just happened to be on the day where there was like a major train disruption. They sent a man A22 to do 193. The reason why this is done is because, okay, basically, they were on loan to Sunli Bus Park, which had been taken over by SMRT. And then obviously they were eventually returned to Kranji Depot, and then they have like the GB sticker, obviously. So these GB sticker buses, they are allowed, even nowadays, to cameo on Sunli Bus Park services, even though they still belong to Kranji Depot slash Gali Batu Bus Depot, which is the new upcoming depot. So the reason why they do this is because I've already explained this in other videos, but the Deputy Director of Bus Assets, that clown, they forced SMRT, it's a guy by the way, but he forced SMRT to intake the KUBs against their own will. And because SBS Transit did not take good care of their KUB, as in for Sunli Bus Park, they had good welfare, but like the maintenance of like the buses was like a whole nother story. So SBS Transit, they kind of neglected their KUBs, and when they got transferred over to SMRT as part of the handover Jurong West bus package, yeah, they kept breaking down. They kept having to go for maintenance and stuff like that. And what that's basically what uh caused SMRT to send some of their Euro 5 man A22s temporarily to Sunli Bus Park in order to cover for like the missing KUB slots, basically, because you cannot just drop duty. You have to like replace it. I mean, yes, and then eventually they were sent back once the KUBs they've done like maintenance. But in essence, SMRT got really fed up with the KUBs, and you know nowadays they sent all of their Euro 4s back except like currently I think two of them, I think, which went MIA for I don't know what reason, but yeah, maybe it's like just to complete like the paperwork to transfer back to SMRT. I mean, because SMRT, they don't want to do the deregistration paperwork because it's not their assets. It's just leased assets from SBS Transit. And yes, there is a leasing fee. I don't know who pays that, but yeah. Because you have to remember that like LTA did not buy the KUBs from SBS Transit. It is still operator owned buses, and when you lease buses, I'm pretty sure like there is a leasing fee or some sort of thing, but I just don't know who pays for it. Because this is like operator owned buses, not government owned buses like BSCP or BCM, stuff like that. It is really operator owned buses. Operator owned buses, in case you guys misinterpreted. So yes, what I was saying is the difference between OOB versus GOB depends on who owns it, government or like the bus operator. Just in case I'm not clear. So yeah. But what happened? The KUBs, even after maintenance, they kept failing. Okay, you could probably say the same things about this bus model due to its age, but remember, this one belongs to SMRT. This one doesn't. This one's all leased from SBS Transit. So SMRT, and this all happened as the bus assets deputy director was about to get impeached, in the sense that they kicked him out of buses. He gets so-called promoted as a form of long service to the organization, promoted to like the director of taxis and private hire vehicles in general. So he's no longer managing buses because they were fed up of him. Fed up with him, sorry. So yeah, this all remember, it all happened as soon as the so-called impeachment process was like internally taking place. SMRT sent these back. Whatever, in case you kids get mad at me for not keeping up with the times, I'm gonna use purple. So yeah. And what they did was that, at the start of all these reshufflings, SMRT, the first bus that they sent was MAN E5. It was like their own assets. They sent it to replace the KUBs at Sunli Bus Park. This is like still their own assets. And then gradually, they started sending I think I should point the arrow better. Okay. Okay. So here's the thing. They do not belong to Sunli Bus Park in any way, but they park at Sunli Bus Park. So they can cameo on Sunli Bus Park bus services. Whatever is under like Jurong West bus package. I don't really care about packages in general, but I'm just describing the rule. And then, slowly but surely, you see them taking the Enviro 500s parked at Sunli Bus Park, those that do these services, they started cameoing them as well. On like, this, and I mean this one was like a stunt, this one was a stunt as well. These two are stunts, these two are natural spawns. So yeah, SMRT started getting a lot wilder with their cameos in general. But the main point is, it started off as simply just to cover for the KUBs while they were undergoing like a massive rehaul, maintenance, or refurbishment. They sent it back to Gali Batu. And then it kept. So you have to remember that like as the impeachment process of the bus assets deputy director was going on behind the scenes, like the massive reshuffling between different bus departments inside LTA, what happened was that SMRT just got more insane with their like so-called stunts and cameos. So it started off just as KUB replacements, and then they started sending more and more of their own assets. And SMRT targets to have at least like 30 to 40% of their own assets, meaning this, and this, running Sunli Bus Park services, which includes these as well. So effectively, this one is under Gali Batu Depot. It used to park at Woodlands Bus Park. But yeah, but Sunli Bus Park buses are able to cameo on 180. They're able to cameo on this, and this as well. Cause like right now they are under Sunli control. I mean, it's not just limited to this per se. Cause you know all those ex Sunli bus drivers who are from SBS Transit, they have been trained to drive like 61. And then at 61, they also park at Sunli. This one parks at Sunli, this one parks at Sunli, and this one also parks at Sunli. So yeah, they make use of Sunli as a parking space for these Kranji bus services. And they also get the Sunli depot, the ex-SBS Transit bus captains, to learn how to drive these services as well. So if you look at it from the big picture, what started off as a mere KUB replacement, they got even more wild by slowly but surely getting more of their own assets into Sunli Bus Park gradually. Because you have to remember, SMRT was literally tied down with a lot of restrictions. So it is like it used to be something like this. You could take a Kranji bus and cameo on an SL service, and usually this happens for the buses that are parked inside of Sunli Bus Park. Like they belong to Gali Batu / Kranji, but they park at Sunli. You used to be able to do this because there was no restrictions in like the checking of mileage records. But then you're not able to do this. Again, because of said restrictions in the checking of the mileage records. But recently they made it more lax to the point whereby you even see this one on 190. Stuff like that. And then obviously there is that Citaro, stuff like that. They used to be really strict with it, and I don't think they're that strict with it anymore. And you know that the deputy director's toys, they're meant to be confined on 974, but the issue is that not many bus captains are like trained to drive that particular bus model. Those two, not just one, I'm sorry. So they have to downgrade to single-decker buses. Or they just run normal double-decker buses in general. Because remember, there are bus captains that stayed with SBS Transit. They were like reshuffled to Ulu Pandan Bus Depot and some to Bukit Batok Bus Depot. But I think majority of them stuck with Ulu Pandan Bus Depot. And then yes, some of them they transfer over to SMRT, and then SMRT also has new bus drivers, and not all of them they know how to drive 974, and then not all of them are like trained to drive those two particular bus models. So yeah, so it becomes like a dilemma of like, do you even run these buses or not? If you don't run them, deputy director is going to get angry that they're not clocking the mileage that they should be clocking. If you run them but on different services that are not even approved, I mean that you have to understand that that ex deputy director was like legit brainless. He only approved he like really wants to like push his whole stupid 3-door 2 staircase nonsense, but he only confined it on like 974. When SMRT tried to deploy it on like 258, they made noise. On this one, they made noise. On this one, they made noise as well. So where do you put them? So this is why SMRT was like really, really tight down with like the restrictions of this the restrictions of this, bus model deployment restrictions, having to use KUBs against their own will, even though SMRT really wanted to use their own assets to run Soonlee Bus Park, because it's their own assets. They are the most comfortable running it, to the point where SMRT, they at some point they decided to stop all the KUB training and send all the Euro 4s back. And they eventually want to send the Euro 5s back to SBS Transit as well. It is just that even though the Euro 5s are still running, they don't even want to continue KUB training for the Euro 5s. SMRT just sees them as KUBs. They don't really like distinguish between Euro 4 or 5. They just see them as KUBs. Like, to them, they are troublesome buses because I don't blame them. It's not their assets. It is just the same thing as SBS Transit being forced to inherit some of SMRT's own assets as well against their own will. Like maybe in the case of Seletar Depot. And that's why Seletar Depot does a really bad job at maintaining the manned buses in general. So yeah. I mean, you just don't, if you want smooth operations, you let the bus operators run their own assets. I know in future all buses are going to be owned by the government, but still, you gotta be at least like flexible, especially when they have their own assets, okay? You cannot like tie them down with restrictions. That was the reason why SMRT continuously rebelled again and again and again. The cameos that they did, the stunts that the bus enthusiast bus captains did, they got a lot more insane, as I've said. Even today, I mean yesterday, there was this on 251. This thing has been confined to Kranji Depot for a really long time. And suddenly it did 251. It's already very relaxed. It used to be like, oh, you only take buses that park at Soonlee Bus Park. But right now, I'm not sure about SL to KJ, but you can literally just take any KJ bus, like with the GB sticker. I don't know if it needs to have the GB sticker or not, but like, you literally can just take any KJ bus and run it on a Soonlee bus service. It has always been allowed. It's just that like, right now there are less and less restrictions. Because I mean, you see Volvo B5LH on 502. I mean, it's a stunt. It's not a natural cameo. It is a stunt. So yeah. A stunt is kind of like a subset of a cameo, but still, it was intentionally stunted. It was not like a natural spawn. That's what I'm trying to say. But this just goes to show you that their restrictions are getting even more lax as time goes by. Sorry, I mean easing of restrictions, and the rules are a lot more relaxed, basically. In fact, SMRT actually wanted to send more of their Enviro 500s. I don't know whether they have implemented this or are going to implement this or not, but they're trying to send more Enviro 500s, their own assets, like you know the SMB, the 50XX ones, because the 35XX ones, they are owned by the government, but the 5, like as part of BSEP, but 50XX, because the government bought the bus for the operators to use. But the 50XX, SMRT bought it with their own money. That's why it's their own assets. So they are trying to send more of the 50XX Enviros into Soonlee Bus Park. Again, I don't know when it'll happen or if it'll even happen in the first place. And I've even heard of another rumor. They are actually going, there is a I don't know whether they would implement it or not. It's just a KIV thing. They actually are trying to propose to send Volvo B5LH to do these feeder services. Obviously, yeah, that opens more avenues for like stunts or even natural cameos per se, but they are trying to send some Volvo B5 LHs from 920 over to do this, and this. And I'm not even kidding. Anyway, these are just the detail of said rumor. Again, I don't know if they're gonna implement this or not, but yeah, this was what I heard. Because if you guys remember, the last time I mentioned this thing, this batch, they were gonna be transferred over to Sunli Bus Park. Well, it turns out, like, whoever told me about said intel, it was half correct. Some of these, they got sent over, but the reality is that they sent over MAN A22s, like the Euro 5s, but not all of them are from like the batch 3, like 3117 to 3169. They came from like different batches of MAN 822, and not all of them are necessarily from Sunli Bus Park. Sorry, not all of them were necessarily from Seletar bus depot. Oh my god, not all of them were necessarily from Seletar bus depot. My mistake. So yeah, this means you would see 0 KUBs in Boon Lay, like for SMRT side. SBS side, obviously, you would still see KUBs because it's their own assets. But yeah, they're trying to bring in more bus models. This one is still unconfirmed. This one is still unconfirmed, but they're bringing in more MAN E5s. They're bringing in more OC500 LEs with a potential lifespan extension depending on like how often they break down. But again, I don't know of the specifics because Gali Batu bus depot is going to have a lot of chargers. They're gonna put a lot of their new electric buses there. So all the diesel buses they would send over to Sunli Bus Park eventually. I don't know about Woodlands side if they're gonna trade some, if they're gonna send over some of their operator-owned bus assets to Sunli as well, but I've only really heard from the Kranji slash Gali Batu side of things. But long story short, SMRT doesn't want the KUBs. They want to send them back to SBS Transit. They want to use their own assets, meaning this. Now, technically, this is the government's assets, but because with the easing of restrictions, the rules being more relaxed, they are proposing to send this to the Boon Lay feeders as well. Whether it'll actually happen, I don't know, but I just know that there is indeed a rumor like this internally. It's so wild because like it all started because the deputy director who got impeached, like the LTA one, got so petty that he decided to like, oh, this bus model or must run on this service, or like you must use KUBs, like you must use SBS Transit's X assets. You must lease them from like SBS Transit. Because of this general stubbornness, it resulted in a lot of problems, and SMRT suffered a lot. And they tried to seek compensation in the form of like money, I guess. That's all I can say. That's all I'm allowed to say. But yeah, but the good thing is that right now they are being compensated in the sense that like basically before the director of bus assets that egomaniac dictator got impeached a while ago, they actually gave up on SMRT SLBP when it comes to like the deployments of buses and having to fix certain bus models on certain services, which was like really killing SMRT because again, manpower constraints. Not every single bus driver knows how to drive your toys. So yeah, then SMRT, they got unhappy, they rebelled, they became more insane with their cameos and deployments and stuff like that. Then they, they told LTA that the KUVs sucked and they were really impacting their overall performance when it comes to like that one bus package in general. So yeah, eventually LTA gave in, compromised, and allowed them to do this kind of stuff, meaning less restrictions, more using their own assets, and it's no longer the rule whereby you have to take a bus from Sunli Depot. You can actually take a bus, but take a bus from like Kranji Depot and just Gali Batu bus depot and straight up use it on a Sunli bus service. Not just for the bus enthusiasts, even normal BCs, as long as it's approved, they are actually allowed to do that. Like by the rostering supervisor, dispatcher, as long as they approve, they're allowed to like just freely cross over from like between Sunli and Kranji like seamlessly. I still don't really know about Sunli to Kranji, but the recent green Citaro on 190, they took one of the bus enthusiast BCs, they took a Sunli bus to do a Kranji bus service, and I assume they didn't make noise. Maybe because at that point of time, the restrictions were already so relaxed and it was already pre-approved and stuff like that. As in that cameo, that stunt basically. So with all that being said, right now you can just take it that buses between Kranji and Sunli, they're able to just cross over seamlessly. I mean, if I just say it simply, obviously, like in terms of like bus operations, there's a lot more like nuances and stuff like that, but you can just take it that way. There used to be a lot of restrictions, bus deployment and stuff like that, as I've said before, but then now SMRT is finally free from the evil clutches of said LTA Bus SS Deputy Director. Because he really sucked. Even the people in the same organization as him hated him. It is no longer a case whereby, hey, this bus model has been pulled over to do this bus service. I want you to off service immediately. Because they tried to stun a bus on 985 last time. They tried to stun a bus on 188 or even 966 last time. They were just told to OS, and even if it's the last bus, they forced the bus captain to like bring out a replacement just to cover the last bus. That's not good for like bus captain welfare. If you want your toys to get more approval and be able to do more routes, you cannot just keep restricting them to like those few services and be so stubborn whenever they try to like stunt or cameo it on other bus services. Because at the end of the day, yes, you are in charge, but I mean you are no longer in charge because you sucked, the deputy director I mean, but like these bus operators, they know more than you. You are just you were just some egomaniac taking a 5-digit salary, I don't know, sitting in an office, barking out orders, being rude to people, being really unfair and really hostile to people, scolding people for no reason, demanding the most stupid things from people, not understanding the plight of bus captains and just people inside the bus industry in general. They have no experience. As in, back then, the people in bus assets, that team, like, they just didn't have bus expertise. They don't have bus experience, public transport experience at all. That's a problem, and I hope that they will fix it. Like with the new team, for example, that whole BYD B18 procurement, the demonstrator procurement rumor and stuff like that, it's a positive sign. Even if they don't procure it immediately, even if they wait a few years to try it, it's fine. But it's still a good step. It's still a step in the right direction. So yeah, you see the cameos getting wilder nowadays? That's because he's already been impeached and shifted over to a different department, no longer buses. The main point that I want to bring out is that the public transport operators, SBS, SMRT, which was formerly TIPS, they know how to run buses better than LTA or MOT does. They know the ground. They know the bus services and their restrictions, like whether SD can do this route, DD can do this route, bendy bus can do this route, or what. They have the experience. They know it better than you. So I'm glad that these restrictions are like off the charts now, because it is really limiting the PTO's potential. I know it's government controlled, but like, you gotta let the PTOs who have more experience than you, even though they're lower ranking than you, even though they're just your so-called servants, you gotta let them bottom up a bit. It's not just top down. You gotta let them experiment. They should be the ones telling you which routes are approved or not, and not you telling them how to run buses. Understand? I mean, that's the whole problem with BCM in general, but it's not really a problem with LTA per se, but like the fact that the people in LTA back then just happened to have like zero bus expertise or experience inside the bus or public transport industry. It's really sitting in an ivory tower office, aircon, not understanding the plight of like bus industry workers in general, public transport industry workers in general. So yeah, that's my message. With more unnecessary restrictions, there is gonna be less progress. But as I've said in the previous part of my video as well, at the very least, it's a small step in the right direction. Whether it gets implemented or not is one thing, but at least the trajectory is in the right direction.